This is the week, Bronco Nation. Welcome to my three keys to the game for Boise State versus Oklahoma State. This is the one that we have had circled since the final minute of the clock ran out in the San Jose State game last year. This is the game that we've looked forward to all offseason. The UCF game was huge. There's other big games this year. Lots of rivalry games reestablished playing the other teams in the Mountain West. Western Division this year with a rotation cycle. So there's a lot of games to look forward to this season, but I think I speak for a lot of us when I say that this is the big one. Oklahoma State Cowboys, the team from Stillwater, coming to play Boise on the blue, a historic occasion, the first time that a current Big 12 member has ever traveled to Boise State and to play on the blue turf. This is an exciting opportunity for Boise State to showcase that they're still relevant, that they're still a top team in the group of five, and a big test of Andy Avalos as his players go up against the bigger, more, I mean, when I say bigger, I mean bigger. They're Oklahoma State has three wide receivers over 6 foot tall, and they also have four defensive backs who are over 6 foot tall. So this is a big, fast team, and it's going to come down to Andy Avalos. How well has he established his vision into this team only 3 games into the season? How well has he established who he wants this team to be? How well is he coaching this offense, this defense, special teams, the whole package together? Are they good enough to go out and beat Oklahoma State? We're going to look at that today. We're going to look at 3 keys to the game. I'm going to talk a little bit about the series info, top players, 3 keys to the game, and I'm going to give a prediction at the end, score prediction, win-loss, and an actual score prediction as well as a summary. So let's get right into it. So this Saturday, Boise State, it's a late game, especially if you're on the East Coast. It's going to be 7 p.m. Mountain Time. The 1-1 Broncos are coming up against the 2-0 Cowboys, who are technically a ranked team. They're number 22 in the coaches poll, even though they remain outside the top 25 in the AP. 7 p.m. Mountain Time on FS1. This is a big game. Boise State has totally flipped the script from what it was coming into this week. Boise State is actually now favored in this matchup. They are now favored by 3.5 points by Vegas. Now, that's actually down a point from a couple of days ago. So Vegas is starting to get a little iffy on the Broncos, but 3.5 points favorites and a 66.4% chance of winning according to ESPN. I gave some great stats in my Boise State versus OSU 3 reasons why either team could win. I definitely recommend going back and watching that. I'll put it in my in the comment section. Sorry, not comment section, description section of the video. But one of the stats I said there is that Boise State is second all time, again in all games played since 2003 as a favorite at an 89% winning percentage. And we all know that on the blue, nobody wins as well at home as Boise State does. And Boise State has a 92.1% winning advantage at home on the blue since 2003. They've only lost 9 times and won 105 matchups. So this is a big game. It is a tough environment to play. Now, having said that, Oklahoma State does own the 1 win so far in this series. When Broncos went into Stillwater in 2018, Oklahoma State managed to hang on for a win. Won 44-21 in that one. But don't forget that Boise State was in that, and game was much closer than what the final score showed. Boise State, remember, pulled the game to 14-20 about midway through the third quarter. So this game was very much in the balance. Boise State scored the first point of the game with a touchdown pass, I believe it was to Hightower. So Boise State played well in that game, just wasn't able to finish. And it's going to be the question is, are they going to be able to, with the momentum, the crowd momentum behind them, are they going to be able to finish here in Boise and win this game? Now, I want to take, before I talk about the top players, I want to take a brief moment and just talk about something that was reported by, I believe it was Ron Counts, but it could have been someone else. But it was reported that Hank Bachmeier said that he had received a lot of negativity over Twitter and other messaging systems after the loss to UCF, even death threats or wishing that he would die. And I just want to say right off the bat that win or lose in this game, that Boise State's response and only response, Boise State's fans and fan base, their only response, win or lose in this game, should be respect and admiration for the players that play this game, that go out and entertain us on a Saturday, so we don't have to sit around twiddling our thumbs like we have all offseason. But respect, admiration, and thanks for the effort, because Boise State, win or lose, is going to put 100% into this game, and it's not going to come down to one player, and the UCF loss didn't come down to one player. The team lost that game, and win or lose, the team will win or lose this game. So whatever happens, whatever mistakes are made, or whatever exciting plays or disappointing plays are made, I want Boise State to remember that we respect those who play for us, and we need to make sure, like I talked about in one of my earlier videos this week, we remember the Bronco way, where we are going to show respect and civility to all fans and to our own players who are sacrificing everything on the field to try and get us a win every week. Thank you for what you guys do out there. It's incredible watching you play. And thank you to the coaches who recruit and build up such great men for this program. So Bronco fans, win or lose, let's have our team have our support. The scoreboard doesn't determine what kind of fans we are. We're 100% bleed blue all the way. So, side note aside, let's get right back into it. Top players here for Boise State. Obviously, Shakir. Shakir is going to be the key to this win. If he hadn't been hampered by injury in the first game, Boise State might have been able to win that game. He still put up 97 yards, I think, on 5 catches. And last week, on 7 catches, he put up 166 yards. So this, Boise State, he's their top player. Now, Oklahoma State knows that. They're going to be covering him tight. Other guys are going to have to step up. But Shakir, we're going to need Shakir to make some big plays in this game if we're going to want to win it. And I think we can count on him to do that. Other players, of course, is Bachmeier, of course, is a big player for Boise State in this matchup. He's always going to be a key factor, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about him later when I get to one of my keys, so I'll move on from that for now. And then on the defensive side, LaBeouf and Oladipo have 4 out of the 5 interceptions that Boise State has had so far in between. In the first game against UCF, LaBeouf had 2 picks, and last week against UTEP, Oladipo, the freshman, had 2 interceptions. 2 players that are both, I mean, the whole defense is definitely taking what I would say a step forward from last year, especially considering who we lost, especially especially Avery Williams. Wrong Avery in my mind. Especially Avery Williams and what he brought to this defense. So the fact that we have defenders stepping up and we're having an even better performance as far as interceptions wise really shows the coaching and the caliber of players we have on this team. So those 2 guys are going to need to make another huge impact. We're going to need to get a few more turnovers. Boise State is going to need a lot of things to break their way if they're going to want to win this one against a good, if underrated, Oklahoma State team. And then the final key player for Boise State here is George Holani. George Holani is finally back. He's reported to be 100%, no snap count limit on George Holani. He is going to be a huge impactor on this game. I still think that Boise State's going to remain air heavy, and I think that they're not going to have as many rushing yards as they have in previous seasons, regardless of who's in the backfield there, because A, the offensive line is not great, and B, the offensive scheme isn't designed for it. But I think we are going to see a marked improvement in the running game because Holani is a player who can break out of tackles. He's smooth and he's fast and he's shifty, and he can get out there and get his big yards. But more than that, he's going to have a huge impact throughout the game, in the passing and the running game. I'm excited to see what he can do. Let's talk about Oklahoma State here. First off, Oklahoma, when we're talking about key players, there's a lot of key players who are or could be out. I didn't see the injury report. I was looking for it before this video. It might have been released just prior to this video, but I did most of my research last night. But as far as injury report, players who were out against Tulsa, their number 1 receiver, Tay Martin, was out. Slot wide receiver, Braden Johnson, was out. Starting linebacker, Devin Harper, was out. Starting right guard, Hunter Wood, was out. So they had a lot of players out. I'm not sure how many of them are going to be returning, but even if they are returning, they're going to be coming in a little bit rusty. They're not going to be coming in 100%. They probably haven't practiced the full week. So I expect that Oklahoma State is still going to be hampered by those injuries a little bit in this one, which could be a benefit for Boise State. However, Oklahoma State does have several players who are definitely going to be big factors against Boise State. And 2 of the key ones here, one for the offense, one for the defense. Quarterback Spencer Sanders. Now, he didn't have a great game last week against Tulsa, but he just came off of COVID protocols. He was rusty. He didn't play in the first game. He hadn't had full practice, prior to this game, or at least not as much practice as he should have coming into that first game. even so, he did well enough to get Oklahoma State the win against Tulsa. 173 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 62 yards rushing. Actually leads the team in rushing. Oklahoma State, a team like Boise State who struggled in the running game so far this season. But he is a true dual threat quarterback. Over his career, he's passed for 4,245 yards, and he's ran for 959. Now remember what Gabriel's did against Boise State on the true running a dual threat quarterback that Boise State faced so far. And Spencer Sanders is a quarterback who's gonna be able to do that. Maybe not. I mean, Gabriel's is a top level talent. I don't think a lot of people are at his level, but Sanders is a good athlete. And Boise State, if they don't make some dramatic change in the defensive scheme, and even if they do, are probably not going to be able to stop him, at least not on a consistent basis. He's going to hurt. He's going to be able to hurt us with his arm and his legs. So Boise State, we're going to get to the key here when I get later on, but Boise State's defense is going to really need to find a way to stop him and make sure we can keep him contained. If we can keep Spencer Sanders contained, Boise State has a good chance of winning this game, but it's going to be a big challenge. On the defensive side, Oklahoma State has an absolute monster playing linebacker for them at almost 6 feet tall, 5'11", 225 pounds. Malcolm Rodriguez had 15 tackles in the first game and 13 tackles last week to lead the team with 28 tackles so far. And he's just all over the field. Reminds me a lot as far as his playing effort of Leighton Vander Esch, a great linebacker for them in the defense. Boise State is going to have a hard time both running against him and also when they're trying to complete the short and intermediate passes. He's going to be a big factor in both of those. So those are key players for Oklahoma State. Let's get into my 3 keys to the game here. So first, number 1, Bachmeier has to be accurate. Now this, might seem obvious, but it is an issue that he has struggled with. Throughout his career, Bachmeier so far is 62.8% completion percentage, and last year it was his lowest with a 61.5% completion percentage. He hasn't been over 70% on his career, even though in the UCF game, I believe he was 70.3% in that game. But he has, was it UCF or UTEP? Anyhow, he's a quarterback who, while he has incredible skills, I think Bachmeier has a lot of skills. I have a lot of respect for him. I'm wearing a number 19 jersey right now. He's one of my favorite players on this team just because of the Bachmeier magic factor. I mean, he can make plays that you don't think he's supposed to. He's tough as nails. I mean, the amount of times that he got absolutely whacked his freshman and sophomore season is just mind-boggling that he didn't get injured his freshman senior season sooner than he did. He's tough as nails. He can run when he needs to. He's maneuverable. He's shifty. He has great vision. I really like Hank Bachmeier. But one thing that he struggles with is throwing the ball accurately on a consistent basis. Like I said, he can make dazzling, once-in-a-lifetime throws, and he does it on more than once-in-a-lifetime basis, but he isn't as accurate as a quarterback of his level should be. And in going up against Oklahoma State defense with these very tall defensive backs in the secondary, the passing windows are going to be very small, and he is going to need to be on his game 100% accurate. Maybe not that much, but he needs to be much more accurate than he has been if Boise State wants to have a chance of being able to work efficiently in this air raid style offense. Because it is an air raid style offense, Tim Plow's kind of thing, air raid guy. Because it is an air raid style offense, everything flows through Hank Bachmeier. The success of the team then depends on Hank Bachmeier. And in the first game, we saw that Boise State, pretty much anytime they wanted to throw it, which they should have done more, especially in the second half, but pretty much anytime they wanted to do it against UCF, their guys were open. The wide receivers were running great routes. They were open, and Boise State was very efficient when they went in the air. But the few times that Boise State missed wasn't because of good coverage. It was because of bad throws by Hank Bachmeier. Last week, Boise State finally started stretching the field, and Hank Bachmeier's accuracy issues showed up once again. Shakir has been able to make 2 one-handed grabs for what should probably have been overthrows, but he was able to make up for it with one-handed grabs. Octavius Evan missed a one-handed grab, which would have been another deep pass. So Hank Bachmeier completed, I believe it was 6 passes for over 20 yards last week, but really it should have been 3 or less due to those overthrows that his receivers were able to make up for him. And then he also missed a potential outbreaking route to Bowens there that if he'd been able to throw it on the money, Bowens might have been able to get close to getting a touchdown on that one also. So like I said, missing guys has been his thing. Luckily for Boise State, he's tended to miss long, besides, of course, the one interception against UCF. He's tended to miss long, which is, if you're going to miss, you want to miss long so it doesn't get picked. But like I said, against Oklahoma State, it's not so much about not throwing interceptions. It's going to be about being able to complete the passes, to keep the offense on the field, give our defense a rest, and be able to keep Oklahoma State's very dangerous quarterback and offense, which I think is going to be much better this game, offense in general, off the field. So Boise State, number one key here is going to be accuracy for Hank Bachmeier. Number two key is going to be stay aggressive on defense. Boise State is not going to be able to stop Oklahoma State. I'm just going to say that. They're not. And that's not necessarily because it's a group of five versus power five or the skill gap. It's because it comes down to the skill gap, but it's not necessarily group of five versus power five. Boise State defenses have been able to be dominant in the past, but this defense is not dominant. At least not yet. Andy Avalos definitely is the coach that's going to be able to get Boise State to a place where they can be dominant on defense, but they haven't been able to do that yet. They didn't show it last year, so it's not Andy Avalos' fault. This team, like I've talked about in my other videos, it has good players, but it doesn't have great players consistently throughout. It doesn't have the depth, even if the first string are okay. It doesn't have the depth, and it doesn't have players that are used to playing with each other for an extended period of time, and they don't have the team chemistry yet, or at least they definitely didn't last year, and they didn't have it against UCF, and they seem to start to develop it a little bit against UTEP there. So maybe they'll take a big step forward in this one. But Boise State, the way they're going to beat Oklahoma State in this one is they're going to have to be aggressive. It's going to have to come down to the play calling, because Boise State's defenders, they just don't have the players that are going to be able to win consistently the one-on-one matchups, whether that's on the defensive line, which has not been great at getting to the quarterback. Only 3 sacks against UCF, only 1 recorded sack against UTEP, even though one of those they did have another sack that was counted as a fumble. So I think that should count as a sack as well as a fumble. But only 1 recorded sack against UTEP and only 3 recorded sacks against UCF. And I believe there was 0 quarterback hurries in that game against UCF as well. I don't remember reading about any quarterback. I remember if I looked at the ESPN stats, there were 0 quarterback hurries against UTEP as well. So this is not a defense that's not able to get home, at least just sending 4 guys up against the offensive line. And it's a defense that when they drop back in coverage, we saw this against UTEP, when Boise State's defense drops back in coverage, even though the secondary is, I think, the better portion of this defense, if the quarterback's given enough time, he's going to find somebody open. So the way that Boise State is going to be able to beat Oklahoma State on defense is going to be stay aggressive. Boise State needs to be sending a blitzer on every single play. That will help against the running game. It will help. They need to be either sending a blitzer or a quarterback spy, but I think pressure is going to be the best option because it will limit Sander, who, like I said, I think he's going to take a step forward this week, but he's still rusty. This is only his second game of the season. It's going to fluster him. It's going to maybe panic him into throwing some more interceptions, and it's going to stop his ability, or at least have a better chance of stopping his ability to run. Boise State has got to be aggressive on defense and get the big plays. This is a big play defense. That's how they win. That's how they thrive. Andy Avalos is a smart coach. And I already expected that after last season only having 3 interceptions, I already expected that Boise State, and 0 forced fumbles, so Boise State had 3 turnovers all last year. I already expected that Andy Avalos would come in and turn that around immediately. I absolutely believe that. But he's done even more than that. He's not just made Boise State better on its ability to have turnovers. He's basically built the defense to create those turnovers, and that's what they thrive on. Because Boise State had 6 turnovers forced last week, 3 interceptions and 3 forced fumbles, and that was able to stop drives that UTEP was chipping away at Boise State, completing those passes. Those mistakes that Boise State is able to force, that is where they're able to make up for their deficiencies on the overall defensive unit as a whole. Boise State, the play calling was great against UTEP, and they need to come in with that mindset. Are they going to give up some big plays? Yes. Oklahoma State is going to be able to get some plays over the top because the secondary are being asked to cover one-on-one and having to win those battles. So yes, they're going to give up some big plays. They're going to miss the quarterback or running back a few times, and they're going to break out for a few plays. But if Boise State doesn't do that, if Boise State drops back in coverage, Oklahoma State's going to make the play anyway, and they're going to have a long, methodical drive where they wear out the defense and get it into the end zone. So at least with the big play element, there's a higher degree of probability that Boise State's going to be able to get those big plays, make a big sack in the backfield, drive Oklahoma State away from the line of scrimmage, or get those turnovers, and in that way stay competitive in this game, because Oklahoma State is likely going to score either way. But at least with the big play element, Boise State will be able to force the turnovers that will help their offense go out and make an impact in this game. I mean, Oklahoma State is turnover vulnerable. They've already thrown for 2 interceptions, and while they've only lost 1 fumble this season, they've actually fumbled the ball 6 times and just been lucky enough to jump back on it. I mean, last week they had 3 fumbles that they lost last week. I believe they had 4 fumbles they lost last week and 2 in their first game. So Oklahoma State is very turnover prone already, and that's going up against defenses that weren't as necessarily as aggressive or geared towards forcing turnovers as the Boise State defense is. So if Boise State can stay aggressive, Oklahoma State will make mistakes, and Boise State is going to be able to make them pay for that, and that all starts with the defense staying aggressive. Third key to the game, get the backs involved in the passing game. Like I said, this is not a Boise State team that is a balanced attack. It's not. And I've said before, I think that's a good thing for this season. Andy Avalos and Tim Plow looked at what Boise State had. They have offensive linemen that just aren't able to block consistently for the run game. And it's not a matter of scheme or play calling. That's just what they have. It's the players up front they weren't able to block last season very well, and they're definitely not able to block this year. So even though Boise State returned 4 out of 5 guys up front, that's not necessarily a boon for them. But this is a unit that is able to get the ball off quickly. It's a unit that has deep receivers and a good quarterback, and who can make the defense pay for trying to come in and force their way up against the offensive line by hitting them deep in the backfield, deep in the secondary. And they're able to drive the defenders back from the line of scrimmage and maybe open up some opportunities to get off a big play in the run game from time to time. That's what Boise State is. They're pass-heavy, air raid style offense, and the running backs can still have a big role in that. Now, Boise State so far has not been good at rushing the ball, and that's an understatement. We all know that. Boise State has 141 yards rushing the ball so far in 2 games. But when you actually look at their, what I would call the trio of starter, the 3 main guys, the trio on this team, which is Halani, who's been out injured and finally came back last week, Van Buren, and Cyrus, when you look at those 3 guys, Boise State only has 85 yards rushing between the 3 of them, and Halani had like a 17-yard rush last week. And I know Van Buren has a 17-yard rush, so right there, that's 34 rushing yards out of 85. Boise State is averaging 2.2 yards per carry right now. So my main point here is Boise State knows it's not going to be able to go out and consistently run the ball, but it has running backs who are very, very capable weapons in the passing game. Halani, great hands. He's shown it in the past. He's a running back who can definitely go out there and work it in the passing game. And Cyrus, Boise State was really kind of tinkering with him to see what he could do in the passing game, and he looked really good. Last week, Cyrus was 3 of 28 on receptions for 3 of 28 for receptions in the game. But so far, Boise State really hasn't leaned heavily into that ability that the running backs have to be involved in the passing game. Out of the 42 completions, only 7 of them have been to running backs. And out of the 603 yards passing that Boise State has, only 32 of those yards have been to running backs. And like I said, 28 of those was in last week's game. And I think almost all of it was in the second half when they were kind of tinkering and seeing what Cyrus can do. So Boise State has talented running backs. Halani, an incredible generational talent for Boise State. Cyrus, a player who can show great speed and quickness. And Van Buren, well, not necessarily a great role in the running game, has shown in the past his ability to catch it out of the flat. So both of these, Van Buren, while not necessarily having the best hands on the team, is what I meant to say, has shown the ability to catch it out of the flat. So Boise State has running backs who can be involved in the passing game, and I think that Boise State, now that they're embracing this pass-heavy identity and not trying to do what they tried to do in the second half against UCF, where they just ran it, and it didn't work. Now that Boise State is embracing this pass-heavy identity, they need to be using their running backs more efficiently in that passing game and making the defenders have to cover not just 4 receivers and a tight end, but 4 receivers receivers, a tight end, and a running back out of the flat, really stretch this defense, really kind of force those one-on-one matchups that Boise State's receivers are able to go out and win and make and involving the running backs in the passing game won't only just increase Boise State's weapons on offense, but it'll also, like I said, stretch the defense and make their other weapons more effective. So the starting trio here, I think Kalani, like I said, he's going to be the number one running back, and I think the running game will be better with him there, but it's not going to be dominant, and it's not going to be what Boise State's relying on. They need to stay with what they are as a team, work with the weapons they have, stay up in the passing game, and get their running backs involved. So that's my 3 keys to the game. Bachmeier has to be more accurate, stay aggressive on defense, and get the backs involved in the passing game. All right, so summary here. What's this Boise State team going to do? Well, I think, first of all, they are going to be improved. I think this is going to be a significant improvement over last week and even over and especially over UCF. We saw that with an improvement, and they're moving forward in the right direction. They are headed in the direction where maybe by the end of the season, maybe not until next season, but at some point in the near future, this is going to be a Boise State team that is back to being one of the dominant teams in the group of 5 and that goes out and competes at the Power 5 type level as far as their performance and expectations. A team that is back into the Fiesta Bowl era days. Avalos is the coach who can get Boise State there, and he's going to do it. Now, having said that, I wish this game was 2 or 3 weeks down the road. I really, really do, because I think you would see a very much different Boise State team than you do right now. This is still not Avalos' team yet. He is working on it. He is developing them. He is clearing away the old approach and putting it back into his. But it's still not 100% his team. The players have bought in. I'm not saying the players haven't bought in. The players have bought in. He's their coach. They're 100% his guys. But they're still grasping what he wants out of them and finding that identity. I said after the UCF loss, this was a team that needed to find that identity, find out who they really were on the offensive scheme. You know, is this a team that's going to try and win those one-on-one battles? Or are they going to use the play calling to be more aggressive to win up front? And we saw that against UTEP, that they switched to that aggressive style. In the first game, I said that this needs to be a team that, are they going to be the team that tries to run it down your throat, and be reliant on the running game? Or are they going to go up to where they're finding success and be a pass-heavy attack? Well, they found themselves in both of those areas, and they've decided on an aggressive defensive scheme and a pass-heavy attack. But the last game was really the first time that they really bought into both of those. And Boise State is still trying to perfect and develop those. And so while what we're seeing right now out of Boise State is not what is representative of how this team is going to play down the road or how Avalos' teams are going to play in the future, it's still a rebuilding year, and we're still early in that rebuilding year. So this is a Boise State team that I think has a capacity for huge success down the road. But I just don't think that Boise State at this point is the team that's going to be able to go at this week, at third week of the season, is the team that's going to be able to go out and beat Oklahoma State, even though it's on the blue, even though there's so many things in Boise State's favor, the crowd noise, the intimidation factor, the weirdness of having to come on and play on our blue turf, the improvements overall, Halani back, Shakir finally back to 100%. There's so many things. Oklahoma State struggling so far the first 2 games this season. Their quarterback being rusty. Several players out. There's so many things up for Boise State and so many things down for Oklahoma State. Even though Boise State, and I haven't mentioned this yet, even though Boise State is without Riley Wimpy for the first half, but I already kind of talked about how that will impact Boise State in my review of the game last week. And I'm just going to kind of repeat quickly what I said there. Was basically, this team is not necessarily built around Wiley Wimpy like teams of the past were built around that one star player. Like if DeMarcus Lawrence went out, you knew it was going to be a bad game. If you lost Leighton Vander Esch, you knew it was going to be a bad game. Those teams were built around one star player that the rest of the team radiated out of. This team isn't. This team is built more on its scheme, and its scheme wins games, and having good players out there helps the scheme. So Boise State will see a setback without Riley Wimpy out there, but it's not going to completely change how Boise State plays, so it's not as detrimental as potentially losing one of those other players, or even a Riley Wimpy from 2019 when the scheme was more developed around him specifically. And there is a slight benefit from a fresh, great player like that coming back in the second half. So a little bit of a side note, I should have mentioned it earlier, and I just wanted to say it now. But Boise State, that is one thing against them without Riley Wimpy, but there are so many things going for this Boise State program. And the Vegas pollsters, are not pollsters, but the Vegas odds makers are noticing that. The ESPN odd makers are noticing that. And there's so many things going down for Oklahoma State. But while Boise State has so many things going for it, this is Oklahoma State. This is Mike Gundy's team. Oklahoma State is experienced. They are established. They're not going through a changeup. They have a quarterback who's played great for them in the past, who's going to be much improved this week. They are bigger. They are stronger. They are faster. And Boise State just isn't, we crushed UTEP, but that was UTEP. Boise State just isn't this week at the point where they're going to be able, I think, to go out and dominate regardless of how good the coaching is. And the coaching itself, while I have a lot of faith in the coaches, is still also developing itself. We saw a horrible play calling in the second half against UCF, and I thought we saw good play calling against UTEP, but their coaches are still trying to figure out what works for this team as well. So Boise State is still a team that is developing itself and trying to find out. I think they've found who they are, but they're trying to perfect that. And I think even if this game was pushed back by a week, Boise State would be, in my opinion, the favorite to win this game. But I think that Boise State is going to end up losing in a close game that is going to have fans on the edge of their seats throughout. But I do think it's going to be loss number 10 for Boise State since 2003. Loss number 10 on the blue. My predicted score here is Boise State 27, Oklahoma State 38. Now that's the analyst in me. The fanboy in me, the Boise State fan in me, is going to be rooting that we go out and smoke them Cowboys. That's what I'm going to be rooting for. And the fan in me 100% believes that we're going to be able to go out and do that. But the analyst in me has to tell you the truth, Bronco Nation. I have to tell you what I'm looking at with the stats, how Oklahoma State's playing, how Boise State's playing. And I 100% hope I'm wrong. I'm going to be rooting against myself. I believe this is the first time I've ever predicted Boise State to lose, though I might have predicted one game last week. And I have been wrong in the past. I absolutely have. I predicted to win against BYU. We lost that game. So, and I predicted to win against UCF. And we lost that game too. So I'm not infallible. Boise State is a team that I do believe that Boise State is a team that can win this game. And I gave 3 reasons why in my 3 reasons why video. I have faith in this team to be able to go out and win. I absolutely do. I think this is a team that can, if the right things fall the right way, if Boise State doesn't shoot themselves in the foot and doesn't make mistakes, if Hank Bachmeier goes out there and plays, Florida State style type of game, but even then he made some mistakes in that one too. But Florida State style type of game where he's making the big plays that light up the scoreboard and catch the nation's attention. If the play calling stays perfect throughout the whole game and we don't see any backsliding like we did in the UCF, if the defense is able to make the big turnovers and the offense is able to capitalize, if those things all come together and Boise State plays their heart out, they can win this game. This is not a foregone conclusion. This is a team that's favored coming to this matchup, that has a huge advantage at home, and a team that is absolutely 100% capable of going out and winning this game at home for a big statement that Boise State is back on the blue. I absolutely believe this team can win this game. I'm just looking at the overall factors and saying the odds are I think that they're going to end up losing it, but I'm 100% going to be rooting for a Bronco win in this one. So please forgive me, Bronco Nation. I hope I don't upset anyone by just trying by saying what I truthfully believe in this one. But if I didn't, I wouldn't be serving you right as Bronco Bachmeier, as the analyst here. I wouldn't be serving you right if I didn't tell you what I absolutely 100% believe. So, Bronco Nation, huge game. You're going to be one of the reasons that Boise State, if they're able to, is able to win this game. Your noise, your energy all night long. It looks like a sellout crowd. Be loud, be proud, be respectful. But as always, make sure that we show up and show the world what Bronco Nation is all about. We're a crowd to be reckoned with. We're a team to be reckoned with. And I think this is going to be a very fun game regardless of the outcome. So thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Big Blue.